The ESRC, the Economic and Social Research Council, looking at democratic renewal and civil society. The principal lead on which is Daniel King, who is attending to the camera, which will be recording the proceedings today. We have got a website, although we did lose our research associate who was keeping that up to date, so I think it went a little bit wobbly for a while, but we should have these online as well afterwards, if everybody's happy to have their talks recorded. The specific focus for today is democracy at work, cooperation in civil society, which Martin and I have taken on organising here at Leicester. Partly we really thought that that was one of the most important spaces to be thinking about this relationship between democratisation and civil society, particularly at the moment where we are seeing, arguably at least, a profound questioning of democracy at the highest levels of government in certain spaces, a rise of populism and a break with a lot of the old democratic rationalities that we'd associated with modernism, post-enlightenment thinking, ideas around truth and democratic participation on the wider scale. Other seminars in the series are dealing with issues like representations and how those ideas of practice become co-opted, or ideas of democratic participation become co-opted. But the workplace is particularly interesting because historically, at least under capitalism, workplaces are one of those places where you do check your democratic rights at the door and subordinate yourselves to doing what your boss tells you for the period of your work. Not exclusively, workers' cooperatives also have a long history of trying to facilitate direct democracy within the workplace, but I think it's one of those spaces where democracy has been contested in really interesting ways. In contrast, today we are starting to see a shift in the supposed association between wider processes of democratic representative democracy in civil society and capitalism, which traditionally have been associated. Free markets go with freedom of democratic rights. I think what we're starting to see, not only with the rise of China, which is a relatively authoritarian and non-democratic political state, but very successful as a capitalist state also, economically, but with the rise of Donald Trump and others possibly breaking that idea that democracy and freedom go with free markets. In fact, arguably, fascistic authoritarianism is perfectly compatible with supposedly free markets and capitalist work processes. So understanding those relations between work and democracy, but also democracy within work, I think is really a crucial piece of work for us to be doing, both as people working and as academics, researchers, activists, managers, however that works. Which brings us to the themes of today, and I suppose that those are... Sorry, we have some kind of work going on in the gardens at the back. If people do want to close the windows, it gets quite hot in these rooms, but otherwise we'll have the noise there. And I suppose these are also issues that address wider political concerns. So certainly some of the work that Ed has done, Ed Mayo, who's our first speaker today, has done work in the past looking at a kind of a third way between direct, what gets called, I suppose, a paternalistic welfare state of caring for people, and capitalism read in tooth and claw. That kind of a third way of looking at mutuals. I'm thinking of the book Mutual State, sorry I blanked it from what the title was, from just a few years ago, which is really suggesting that workers' cooperatives can offer a mutual, a sort of a way of organising cooperatively and collectively that limits that paternalistic, top-down hierarchical system we associate with state welfare bureaucracies and raw, globalised, for-profit capitalism. So I think in a way one of the things we might be doing is exploring that today. I don't want to spend too much time talking, otherwise to introduce Ed.
It was saying we've rejigged the program a bit.
We've rejigged the program a little bit. So this afternoon we will actually have Dorothy Francis and Bob Cannell speaking directly after the break, where Ed is going to present first. Then we're going to have a question and answer, which Martin's going to guide us through. We'll have a lunch break downstairs. We'll come back. Bob and Dorothy will be responding to some of the issues that Ed has raised. We then have Marisol Sandoval and Peter Ackers, who's not with us just yet, who are going to present some of their academic research on workers' cooperatives, particularly in the creative and cultural industries from Marisol, and then in the relationship between the state and workers' cooperatives and trade unions with Peter. And then we have a breakout and discussion where we can actually collectively work through some of the issues and see where that goes forward. George Kokkinidis and Gareth Brown, both active in researching and living and working in cooperatives, have also offered to kindly wrap things up, bring them together and share some of their own researching experiences to kind of wrap up the day at the end. We should be finished around about 5 o'clock.